What is going on, Pretender here, back with another Honkai Star Rail video, and today I'm here with the should you or should you not summon for the upcoming 3.1 second half character who is literally about to release in practically a few hours to a day, being Mydei. So today I'm going to be briefly going over his kit. I won't be reading it out directly, but I'll just be briefly going over it and why he's really strong. Then I'll be going over some pros and cons, and then finally we'll be going over reasons why you should summon, followed by that will be reasons why you shouldn't summon. So I want to say, before I get into the video, if you guys found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, drop a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all other types of Star Rail content. And let's get straight into the video. So Mydei is the next imaginary DPS that is going to be HP scaling, that also consumes HP similar to Blade, but he definitely works in a unique way. So the pretty much playstyle is to have him do an attack, consume his HP, get hit enough to where he can go into a state called Vendetta, which would automatically be activated once he does reach 100 points in battle. Once you get the 100 points, he will consume 100 points and will immediately go into the Vendetta state. And from that point on, you will no longer be able to control who he decides to attack. While he's in that state, pretty much it enhances his skill, because before you're able to actually use the skill, select who you want to hit, but after he's in the state, it will change his regular skill to an enhanced skill called Kingslayer Be King, which is going to be the attack you're going to see throughout the majority of the battle. That skill is a blast, so it's only going to be hitting 3 people. And the next attack he does have is while he is in Vendetta state. Once he does get up to 150 points of charge, he will consume those 150 points of charge and will launch a different enhanced skill when it is automatically just consumed. Pretty much the moment it hits 150, he consumes it and he automatically goes. And so instead of launching Kingslayer Be King, he will be launching Godslayer Be God, which is another blast, which is just a very big strong hit. On top of that, his ultimate is also really strong, does good damage, and also restores HP because he's able to gain points from being healed a little bit, but primarily where he does lose HP. All his attacks minus ultimate are actually the one that actually give him charge because they all consume HP, while his ultimate will actually restore some HP and also gives him some talent charges. So he's pretty much just a big berserk playstyle because you just don't really get to control him once he's in his state. You just let him get his action and then he automatically goes. Another really important thing about his ultimate is it actually does taunt enemies, so the person you choose to attack and the enemies beside them that get hit by the blast ultimate are forced to attack Mydei for 2 turns, which is really good because you want enemies to be attacking Mydei, because the more they attack him, the more HP he loses. The more HP he loses, the faster he gets his charge. On top of that, while he is in his Vendetta state, he does get an increase to his max HP by a good amount at that, a whole 50%. Drawback is his defense get reduced to 0, so it might be a bit tricky to keep him alive if he gets hit with a really hard-hitting move or constantly getting hit with hard-hitting moves. But the bright side is if he does get killed in battle, you have 3 times where he will come back to life. And with the help of one of his bonus traces, he actually doesn't exit the Vendetta state once you do actually receive the killing blow. With the power of his A2, he's actually able to keep being in the Vendetta state even if he does die, but it will trigger 3 times per battle. And that also does apply to the revives he have. He can't always stay alive, he will go down after the 3rd time. As after the 3rd time, he will not be able to remain in Vendetta state, and that he can receive a killing blow, which he most likely will, and end up dying. So definitely keep note of that. He will always be throughout the entire battle immortal. If you use it 3 times, then he will exit the next one and then actually die. But 3 whole revives is very powerful on its own. And to top it all off, in that Vendetta state, you can't actually debuff Mydei because he is and to top it all off, in his Vendetta state, Mydei does become immune to crowd control debuffs, so he can't get frozen and all that kind of stuff. So you definitely don't have to worry about that either, which is really good. And one of the strongest parts of his kit is he gets a big increase to crit rate based off his max HP, and if you do hit the full amount, which is 8,000 before battle, he can get up to 48% crit rate, which is very good and allows you to allocate so much more to focusing on HP to actually hit that AK and also more crit damage. Because, you know, 48% crit rate for free is very good on top of 5, so going in, you practically have a free 53% crit rate. And if you have other buffs into play, such as Sparkle Icon, which is like an extra 10, or Sunday Talent, which is extra 20, it becomes that much easier and that many less rolls you would need. Very easy to get a high amount of crit rate on him, making him very consistent. And then briefly talking about his Eidolons, his first Eidolon does solve one of the only issues he does have, as it makes his Godslayer Be God hit a little harder because it increases the damage multiplier dealt to the primary target by 30%, and also makes his Godslayer Be God become full AoE, pretty much turning him into a budget erudition character. His second Eidolon is also powerful as it gives him access to a defense ignore by 15% while he's in the Vendetta state. and now he can also convert the healing amount by 40% to his charge, but cannot exceed 40, and will reset the tally of charge anytime the unit takes action, which is really good because it gives him faster source of accumulation by a healer, and again, a defense ignore paired with other sources of defense ignore becomes very powerful. The early dupes are very powerful, and then later dupes are also strong because in Vendetta with his E4 he gets 30% crit damage, and on top of that he restores HP by 10% of the unit's max HP after he receives an attack. So every time you do get hit, you restore some HP, and his broken E6 will pretty much immediately make him enter into the Vendetta state the moment you enter into battle, so you don't need to have 100 points of charge, he just immediately goes into it once you go into battle, and it will also lower the amount you do need for God Serve Be God from 150 points to 100. When talking about other stuff in this video, I will not be accounting for higher dupes. The only dupe I will briefly be talking about is his E1, as it is an important feature to factor. Now for some pros and cons for Mydei. So the pros is he is very strong and has very good damage output. Despite having the auto, he is constantly going to be able to attack anytime you get a turn while you are in the Vendetta state. King Serbi King itself does a lot of good damage, his ultimate does a lot of good damage, and especially his God Serve Be God does a lot of damage as well. Another pro is he is very simple to use. Again, the auto takes over, so the whole thing is just letting him get a turn and he will attack for you, making him a very simple to understand character. Another thing is he is a lot more simple to build because he just needs HP and crit damage primarily. There are multiple ways to actually get to that 8k HP mark. You can run HP body if you need, but primarily the thing you will be doing is running HP orb and HP rope, depending on what you are doing, because he can be ran as a -1 speed with Sunday build, or a 160 Sunday build at base speed with or 160 speed sparkle, as they both work great. With sparkle, you're forced to do the 160 speed sparkle and base speed Mydei, but it's still very powerful. In that case, you would be running Mydei with HP boots and an imaginary orb instead. It's relatively easy to actually get that 8k HP mark, and on top of that, the crit damage rolls are practically the only thing you would want to focus besides other HP rolls if you do need, since he gets so much crit rate, and he still is a crit DPS, but the fact that he gets so much crit rate makes him a lot easier to build, because now you don't have to focus on those crit rate buffs as much. Now for some key downsides. I did say the auto makes him easy to use, but a lot of people will not like the auto, so his playstyle might not be for you, as there's a big complaint about his auto playstyle. That definitely might want to be something you consider. Another thing to consider, as he does consume a lot of HP, it might be a difficult task to actually keep him alive, even with some self-sustainability he does have. So if you don't have a premium healer such as Luocha or Linksha, it might be a bit difficult to keep him alive. I already mentioned the auto being potentially a bad thing for the playstyle, but that also makes it to where his E1 becomes a lot more valuable, so you might not want to actually go for the E1 because you might not have enough pulls, or you just don't want to. Because E1 solves a big problem he does have with that, because his God Serve Be God now becomes full AoE. Unfortunately, it doesn't fully solve it because his King Serbi King, which is what he's going to primarily be using, is still the auto and doesn't attack everyone, it's still blast. But at least his God Serve Be God now hits everyone and solves a big portion of him being auto. And another thing to consider is his team is very premium for his best options. A lot of his best teammates, and practically for his entire best team, is full of premium units. One of his best supports are Sunday. Not running Sunday is a big drop off. The next best option is Sparkle, who's still really good, but Sunday is still better. Another broken support for him is actually Chibi, especially E1 Chibi, which you might have or might not have, because E1 Chibi means pulling her twice, which is a big investment, as there really isn't any HP related supports in this game still. We have more options now thanks to Chibi and such to actually make these HP scalers hit harder, but unfortunately we do not have HP related buffing characters. So his team for the best output is expensive, such as Sunday, Chibi E1, Premium Sustain being someone like Luocha or Linksha, at least to the part to counter the fact that you would really want Chibi, especially E1 Chibi, you at least have RMC. But if you don't have someone like Sparkle or especially Sunday, that's a big drop off because you can use Bronya, but she's still not as good. If you don't have a Premium Sustain, you can actually be pretty susceptible to letting him die, as he consumes a lot of HP. Despite seeming to be anti-synergy, Mydei doesn't have that great damage buffs in his kits, so Ruan Mei is actually not a bad option either. But again, as I mentioned, she's another premium character. But now, finally talk about reasons why you should summon for Mydei. Reasons why you should summon are as followed. If you are in need of another imaginary DPS, because there really isn't many, we had Dr. Feixiao, who is sort of fallen off the face of the earth right now. Still can be good, but definitely not on that side considered, and then Danheng IL. Not many people use him outside of having him E2. Mydei is a fantastic character at E0 S1, becomes a lot stronger with E1. Can be used without his Lekka as well. He does have some good alternatives. He's a very strong imaginary DPS to consider with everything being considered in this video. And if you do have his teammates, or at least almost his best teammates, let's say you have Sunday, maybe you don't have Tribi, but you have a free RMC to use, and you have Luocha or Lingsha, that's fantastic. If you happen to have Sunday, Tribi, especially with Tribi E1 and a premium sustain, even more fantastic, because now he's going to be performing his best. You definitely want to make sure you have a good enough team to actually use him on. And as he fills a role of a imaginary DPS, or just DPS in general, he can be used in places where maybe even imaginary could be resistant, because he hits very, very hard with a proper team. Mydei has very, very high damage output, so that's something you should consider as well, because his damage is just very, very good when you properly set him up. So his really high damage output is another thing you should consider. For some reasons why you shouldn't summon now is practically just the opposite reasons on why you should summon. If you already have good DPSs with their proper teams on your account, then you don't really need the use of another DPS. Another thing is if you really don't have a team for him, let's say you're missing Sunday, you're missing Sparkle, you only really have someone like Bronya, you don't have Tribi in general, your RMC is maybe being used on another team already, and you especially don't have a premium sustain, let's say your best sustain is someone like Lynx or Natasha, then it's going to be really hard to use him. On top of that, he's not going to be performing his best, so he's probably not an option for you. And another thing to consider is if you don't like the fact that you can barely control them, if you don't like that auto side of playstyle, which is a lot of people because a lot of people are trying to boycott it, if you don't like that, then he might not be the character for you, because again, you don't really have much control out of him the moment he does go into Vendetta state. So that is another thing you should definitely consider if you are summoning or not. And that is the video. That is the reasons going over why he is good and his kit is strong, some pros and cons, and then the simple reasons why you should summon and simple reasons why you shouldn't summon. A lot more straightforward around this time because he is a very straightforward DPS. Once again, hope you guys found the video helpful. If you did, drop a like, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and tell the bell icon for future videos like this, along with all other types of style content, and I will see you later. Peace out.